I was actually really excited to see that this week we are talking about privilege and stereotypes and equality because that's always been something that I've really liked talking about. I love sharing my opinion and trying to help educate people, especially the people who it's not arrogance but ignorance. So people who don't even realize how their privilege affects them and how they treat the people around them. The other day, I was talking with a coworker who is one of my friends, and I was messing around. I wasn't feeling good, and I said something like, "Oh, life sucks," and he started lecturing me about how "Oh, life is what you make of it, and you just gotta make the absolute best of your situations," which I agree with. But I don't know, for some reason I was in the mood to argue, and so I started talking about how it's easy for you to say because he is a straight white male. And then we got into a little bit of an argument because he didn't see how that helps him in any way and how that made him or gave him a privilege. And I know a lot of people, I started thinking about how like just the like payment that different people have to or get paid. Like it's been like proven that women on average get paid less than men. I think that's annually or something like that. And then, like, people of color end up getting paid even less than that. And, which is so not cool. And then there's also things like, I've been seeing around, like, the pink tax, which is, like, higher taxes on women's items, which is so stupid. Like, I think this is true, I could be wrong, but I've heard that men's razors are taxed as a necessity, but like toiletries, like tampons and pads, are taxed as a luxury. And without getting too vulgar, I feel like it's not necessary to have a clean shaven face. Like, yeah, it's nice, but you're not gonna die if you don't have a clean shaven face. But bad things are gonna happen if you don't have the toiletries that you need. And that's awful. Like, they're so high priced that that's something that every woman, or not every cisgender woman needs. And so yeah, and then I almost fell over. I was interested to see about the shootings. I had mentioned this to my mom and other people about the fact that if the shooter had been I feel like most, I don't want to go and stereotype again, but I feel like most of the school shooters that I've heard about were white males. And then it's really frustrating because those white males who kill people, they take away the lives of innocent school children, they end up just being labeled as mentally ill, and then they get off fairly easy. Whereas if it were a Middle Eastern or an African American or a Hispanic person, they would be given a way, way harsher sentence. I can't remember his name. I think it was Brock Turner or something like that. He was accused of raping a girl. And he was, I don't know, just the all-around, stereotypical version of, a perfect school kid. And so he was male, white, and I'm assuming straight. He was like the captain of the swim team or something like that. But he like he potentially ruined this girl's life, and because they said he was young and dumb, they pretty much let him off. Like, as somebody who knows several people who have dealt with sexual abuse, like, it's impossible, especially for any man, to imagine, or not any man, because I know sexual assault does happen to men, but for most men, it's pretty much impossible to to imagine that the struggles like that a lot of women have to go through every day. Like, I swear, I can't remember statistics exactly, but it's like every other girl I meet has some sort of story about sexual abuse in one way or another. And I think that's another one of those, I don't know, I guess it's a privilege to not be sexually assaulted. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I've thought very often how most men will never feel the way a young girl feels just walking down the street by herself. Like, there have been times where, for no reason, just walking down the street, I have felt absolutely terrified. Especially when there's, like, it doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter how big or intimidating or that person looks or how nice they may seem. If I see any man that's taller than me walking towards me, walking behind me, while I'm by myself, even sometimes when I'm with somebody, like, my initial reaction is to start panicking, to clench my fists, grab onto my keys, like, anything that I could use to defend myself if he decided that he wanted to take advantage of me. And I feel like most men will never ever have to experience something like that. And you know, that's a really good thing for them, because I would never wish that on anyone. But it's really awful that all of our young girls are having to go through that. So, I don't know, being in a position of privilege, I feel like, I'm trying to think, I am more privileged than some people. I know that. I don't usually get discriminated for being a person of color. I am 50% Filipino, but not everyone knows that. Not everyone can tell. And some people just, don't care. But I don't know. It's really hard, like, seeing people being treated differently for the same exact crime. Like, I don't know, I can think of so many instances where, and this is not me saying, like, oh, all white people are bad, or all white people are evil, like, not at all. It's just, the entire system around it is just so flawed. Like, the fact that I don't think a little white boy would ever get shot by a policeman for chasing after his ball, which is exactly what happened to a little African American boy. He was running down a hill trying to chase after his basketball or something like that, and a policeman saw him as a threat and shot him. And I'm pretty sure he was, like, under 12 years old. He was, like, a bigger built child, but he was a child. He was a little kid just trying to go get his ball back, and now he's dead because of people's stereotypes and just racism, and it's so awful. And I don't know, I feel like I don't really get discriminated against too often. I do for being a woman, because I consider myself a feminist, and I honestly, it makes me mad how feminism is put in such a bad light, because really, like, feminism by definition is just believing that women and men should be equal. It's not trying to put women above men. It's just trying to level the playing field. Because, I mean, you'd have to be pretty stupid or pretty ignorant to not acknowledge the fact that men get treated better than women in most aspects of our society. And I don't know, people like to just point out the extremists, like the extreme feminists who I don't even consider feminists, like the ones who freak out and like think that all men are evil and that women are above them, and that's not what feminism is supposed to stand for. I mean, it's really sad that, like, we live in a world where a term that means wanting to have equal rights is, like, you're looked down upon for that. Like, in some places when you're like, oh, I'm a feminist, they're like, oh, you're a feminist? I don't know. I've gotten that several times, and most of the time I'm pretty proud of it. I'm like, yes, I am. And if you actually knew what it was and didn't just listen to the news you find on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, then you probably would be too if you had a heart. Sorry, that was rude. But, like, I don't know. It's very frustrating to me how men think that they can't be feminist. But then, if you're living in a world where you're on top, why would you want to level out the playing field? I don't know. I got a little bit off topic there, but I feel like it's still kind of relating to stereotypes and privileges and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm overprivileged, but I also don't think that I'm too underprivileged. I have a pretty decent life. Like, I mean, it's not amazing, but I know it definitely could be worse. Like, I have a roof over my head, and I get food every day, and I have a mom and siblings who love me very, very much, and who would do anything for me, and I would do anything for them, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.